and welcome to Varsity Blue, the 2-6 edition. Only two of us, only 2 Michigan football wins through 8 games. Caitlin, what's going through your head right now, Caitlin?
What's going through my head? It is far worse than I had hoped it was going to be. And I'm feeling like Rich Rodriguez has the same thought in his head, too. I don't think anyone anticipated when we lost 4 games, when the Wolverines lost 4 games a few years ago, people thought that was as low as it could get. They were wrong. That's all. I mean, there's not much more to say about that. They were wrong.
Well, usually I'm the unbiased observer here, trying to balance the Chris Deshawn and Scott Wagner and Andy Baena, but right now I'm going to go off on a little rant, kind of like you say maize, I say blue. And I'm going to start off Rich Rodriguez, and I'm even using the highlighter like Lee Corso, so I'm very upset. Rich Rodriguez made a choice, ladies and gentlemen. He said, my way or the highway. And at first, I smiled at that, just like, Bo Schembechler made that decision too. Those who stay will be champions. Good for him. He's going to do it his way. Well, we're doing it his way. The Michigan football team's doing it his way. 2-6. He could have gone to Adrian Arrington. He could have gone to Ryan Mallett. He could have gone to Justin Boren and said, hey, I need you to play football for this football team. He decided not to do that. He decided, you know what? If these guys aren't willing to play for me, at first blush, I don't need them. Well, I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this campus, but I think Ryan Mallett would have been a good addition to this football team. I think Adrian Arrington might have been the best receiver in the Big Ten had he stayed. Justin Boren, that's a different story. You don't transfer to Ohio State. But look, every time we've watched this guy, we've seen him trample over tradition. And ironically, Caitlin, the motto of this Michigan football team this year, the tradition continues.
I'm gonna disagree with you on your points here that the Wolverines would be better off with those former players. I don't believe that's the case. I really don't. I think that there's too much youth on this team, and one player is not going to make a difference. It's an entire team effort. The entire team has to understand Rich Rod's offense and scheme. Look, when the offense has a good day, the defense has a bad day. That's a senior-laden defense. People thought that this defense was going to carry the Wolverines through the season. They have been absolutely horrendous. In fact, our defense is ranked one of the last in the Big Ten right now because of that. So you cannot tell me that one single player is going to make or break this Michigan team. It is just an overall catastrophe as far as Wolverine fans and players and coaches are concerned.
You know what, Caitlin? I forgot to mention this, and I'm going to look right in the camera and say it. Lloyd Carr, if you're out there sitting in your dorm room, which I know you're not, I'm sorry, because I never thought that this team could lose more than 4 games. I thought 4 games was the worst, and we've been proven otherwise.
I don't know why you're apologizing to Lloyd Carr. Lloyd Carr is part of the reason that we're in this predicament. He knew he was retiring. He left the team in a hole. He really did. Recruiting-wise, you look at the trends, the patterns over the last couple of years, he just didn't plan well enough ahead for when he left to sustain. He planned for the 4 years that Chad Henne, that Michael Hart, that the Mario Manningham eras. He planned for that talent pool, and when they were gone, there was nothing left. If Lloyd Carr were still head coach of Michigan football, you'd still be looking at a losing season right now. And I don't care who the coach is. I don't care if we would have hired Les Miles instead of Rich Rodriguez. I don't care. The talent on this team is not sufficient to win in the Big Ten on a consistent basis. It doesn't matter if you're running the spread. It doesn't matter if you're running an old-fashioned tailback I formation offense. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, we obviously disagree about that. But let's take a look at what happened 2 weeks ago. We took a break. It was fall break. And it looks like the Michigan football team took a break in the second half of this Penn State game as well. The first half, Caitlin, you saw everything this team, fans had hoped this team would be. But in the second half, it was a totally different story. And you start off, you look at that, Evan Royster, 18 carries, 176 yards, and there's no statistic on this, or I haven't found it, but I guesstimate that 70% of those yards were after contact, making at least one tackler miss.
For sure. There's no doubt about that. That he was not, it wasn't that he was much faster, it wasn't that he was getting great offensive line blocks, or that our guys could not make a tackle. And speed is everything. And Michigan defense, if you have all the guys rushing to the person and they all get there and they all miss the tackle, then there's nobody left. So tackling, very important. Rich Rod will tell you the same thing.
Well, and this is an interesting problem because this is a problem under Jim Herman back in the day. It was a problem under Ron English, and it's continuing under Scott Schaefer. Do you think that this problem is, bred into Michigan football players, or what is it? Because you have different head men, you have different players, and it's the same problem year in, year out.
The problem is not the players or the system, it's consistency. And I wish I could have a great answer for why that is. Michigan has some great defensive schemes. Sometimes against P.J. Hill in Wisconsin, P.J. Hill was supposed to run all over the Michigan defense, and they contained him better than any team has against Wisconsin all year. But against Penn State, they had some drives they contained, and they did really well on defense. They made some tackles, and then other drives they blew up, and they couldn't tackle if their life depended on it. That's not a coordinator. That's not a system. That's just players not playing consistently and being mentally tough the entire game. How you fix that, I'm not sure, but I like the way that Rich Rodriguez is approaching it. He knows that it's a consistency issue. He's not going to change the game plan. He's not going to try to put new things in the players' heads. Instead, he's trying to tackle the problem, which is consistency, which is a mental aspect of the game that he knows that he can do things by, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's make mentally tough practices. That's where he's going to target to fix this team. And I feel like in the future, you're going to see the results of that.
Perhaps tackling the problem would be a poor choice of words when we're discussing this issue. But one bright thing that happened in that game is Brandon Miner came alive. He did not fumble, which is something, Brandon Miner is definitely on a career-long streak at Michigan. Talk a little bit about Brandon Miner and his resurgence. Only 55 yards against Michigan State, but still, that's more than he had put out his entire career thus far.
In Penn State, in the first Michigan drive of the ball game, Brandon Miner had more yards than he had in his entire career up to that point. That is an impressive statistic. He ran all over Penn State's defense, and the reason for that was he was reading the field. He knew where his blocks were. He had patience and vision. He was waiting for the open holes and then bursting through them with speed and power. He showed a little bit of the Mike Hart we all know and love from the past, where he got hit and he didn't go immediately to the ground. He bullied his way through. He was a power runner and he ran downhill. I think that's part of the reason why Sam McGuffey hasn't been as successful as people wanted, because he's running too much left and right. He's not running downfield. And those blocks created, those holes in college football don't last very long. And Brandon Miner sees that. He addresses that. For the first time against Penn State, he was finally healthy, and you could see that in his burst of speed through those holes, great vision, and that's why he was so successful in that first half.
As great Lions coach Bobby Ross, former Lions coach Bobby Ross would say, he needs a north-south runner. That's what we need. All right, speaking of someone who went north and south a lot, Javon Ringer ran all over the Michigan defense. And let's take a look at the highlights from last Saturday's game where little brother grew up a little bit in the big house. Well, every good game starts with a flyover. 4 F-14 started out, and that was probably about as great as the Michigan offensive fireworks went. A little after 3:30, we kicked it off, and right off the bat, Michigan, same problems as usual. The bugaboo all season, the slot receiver and third and long, right there, Michigan State converting a third and long, and then are you serious? Blair White being covered by what? A linebacker. Where did he line up? In the slot. 61 yards, touchdown Michigan State. Just a few minutes into the game, they had the lead. But the Michigan offense responds right there. Stephen 3 rolling out to his right, finding Greg Matthews on a third down, one of the few third down conversions Michigan had all day.